We are learning this Perek of Tehillim, chapter 35, Le'iloi Nishmat Sarah Rivka Bat Harav Nachum Umendel, Sarah Lam Drach Allah Shalom. The Radak explains that David wrote this Perek of Tehillim, chapter 35, when he was being pursued by Shaul HaMelech. The Perek of Tehillim describes his feelings of oppression and how he is seeking God's help to defend himself from the dangers brought upon him by his enemies. Rav Hirsch points out that this Perek of Tehillim could have been said by the Jewish people in every generation, for persecutions like David is describing here took place generation after generation throughout our history. For the next few minutes, I'm going to take you mainly through Rav Hirsch's explanation of chapter 35 of Tehillim. The word LeDavid opens up the chapter. The opening words of a Perek give an introduction to David's frame of mind as he is writing the chapter. The word LeDavid, as opposed to Mizmor LeDavid or LeDavid Mizmor, indicates that David is not in the midst of gaining inspiration or feeling a feeling of divine joy as he composes his Perek. It indicates that he is simply stating the emotions and thoughts that are on his mind. Rav Amos Chacham divides the Perek into three parts. In the first section, David is expressing a tefillah that his enemies will be unsuccessful in their war against him. The second part describes David's complaint to Hashem on the betrayal by his enemies that he is feeling. In the last part is another prayer. This time, it's a prayer that in place of the mockery that he hears his enemies making of his pain, he should hear them instead praising Hashem for ultimate salvation. We'll delve a little deeper now into the three sections with the commentary of Rav Hirsch. When David is asking Hashem to save him from his attackers, he uses a double language. Riva Hashem es yirivai, lecham es lochmai. He is asking God to fight against them that fight against me. A double language here indicates that both his honor, his innocence, is being attacked with slander, as well as his physical being attacked, and David is praying for safety from both angles. It is truly a one-sided fight, with David not reciprocating the hostility. The Malbim writes that in these first few psukim, there is an emphasis of just how one-sided the fight is. David is asking Hashem to come to his rescue completely. David asks, Riva Hashem es yirivai, fight for me, before there comes a need for a physical war. But if a war does begin, then lecham es lochmai, fight for me then. Continuing into the next pasuk Beis, David goes on, and if I need to fight among them, then hachazek magen v'shina, Hashem should be a shield for me, defending me from their attacks. And if I should need to run away, then v'harik chanit u'sigor l'kras rodfai, Hashem should block their path from pursuing me. David continues to use repetition in his composing as he asks Hashem to shame and humiliate his enemies. In Pasuk Daled, he says, Yevoshu v'yikalmu mevakshe nafshi, yiskor achor v'yichapru, choshbei ra'asi. May they be shamed and disgraced, those who seek my life. Let them retreat and be humiliated, those who plot my harm. The first word in this pasuk used to describe the embarrassment that David is wishing upon his enemies is the word yevoshu, which is describing a humiliation due to frustrated hopes. Next is yikolmu, a realization of one's own present unworthiness. The last word used is v'yichaperu, a shame that comes as a result of secrets being revealed that you would have rather remained secret. David davens that his enemies be forced to see their own unworthiness and how they lack substance, like empty pieces of straw that are being blown about by the divine will. David then describes how the enemy would warp facts or completely invent a history of wickedness on David's part so the world would view their attack on him as justified. This, points out Rav Hirsch, is a standard trick of malicious people, to project their own traits on others for public relations purposes. In the 9th and 10th psukim, David expresses how he will thank Hashem when it is through. He goes, Nafshi tagil ba'Hashem. My soul, my personality, which was saved from slander by Hashem, will praise Hashem. While kol atzmosai, all the bones of my physical being, saved from physical destruction by Hashem, will praise Hashem as well. In the 11th pasuk, we start the second section. And here, David describes the cruel actions of his enemies. He describes how they would rise up against him as false witnesses, either making up complete lies and distorting facts. All this despite how David would pray for them when they were ill and down. These people had hard times as well when they were in pain. In Pasuk Tetvav, he is describing how they are treating him, and he calls them Nechim. He says, Uvitzali samchu v'nasafu, nasafu alai Nechim v'lo yadati, karu v'lo damu. To translate it, it means, but when I limped, they rejoiced and gathered. The wretched, the stricken, gathered against me. I know not why they tore at me and would not be silenced. Here, the word nachim, meaning stricken men, is teaching us that these people had experienced pain like this themselves in the past. These people should have had pity for him because they knew his pain, and yet they rejoiced in his misfortunes. Following that, in Pasuk Yud Zayin, David says, Nafshi mishoechem mikfir michidasi. Lead my soul back from their abuses, my only treasure from the lions. Using the word yichidasi, my only treasure, David is again referring to his character, which is under attack. This to him is the most important, and we'll see why in the next section. In the next section, David expresses to Hashem his plans to work as Hashem's tool to spread his word throughout the world. However, he asks Hashem to save his reputation first, so that he may be successful in his endeavors. He needs people to accept him. David asks that in place of hearing how the cruel men who pursue him rejoice in his pain, hearing how they call out to each other to look and get a good view while David suffers, Hashem should look and see their malice and come to David's defense. That way, David would hear them change their call. They should instead recognize that David is an Eved Hashem, a tool of Hashem, and they may allow him to succeed in his mission of spreading Hashem's word throughout the world. And here David concludes with a statement that he will continue to express his praise for Hashem day by day. Then my tongue will express your righteousness, your praise all day long.